Will you look into the mirror?
What will I see?
Even the wisest cannot tell, for the mirror shows many things. Things that were, things that are, and some things that have not yet come to pass. I know what it is you saw, for it is also in my mind. It is what will come to pass if you should fail. The Fellowship is breaking. It has already begun. He will try to take the ring. You know of whom I speak. One by one, it will destroy them all.
If you ask it of me, I will give you the One Ring.
You offer it to me freely. I do not deny that my heart has greatly desired this. Of a Dark Lord, you would have a queen! Not dark, but beautiful and terrible as the dawn! Treacherous as the sea! Stronger than the foundations of the earth! All shall love me understand! Pass the test. I will diminish and go into the west and remain Galadriel.
I cannot do this alone.
You are a ring bearer, Frodo. To bear a ring of power is to be alone. This is Nenu, the ring of adamant, and I am its keeper. This task was appointed to you, and if you do not find a way, no one will.
Then I know what I must do. It's just... I'm afraid to do it.
Even the smallest person can change the course of the future.
All right, back again. This is Set to Dispose of, Black Earth Productions, Blue Flame, Healing Arts, Occult Science. Here again with Michael Tsarion. And today we are going to be diving into the occult secrets of Atlantis. Michael, it's good to have you on to dive deeper into not only what has happened in our ancient past, But what we can also see happening in our world, what we are witnessing in our world, Georgia Guidestones are destroyed. Those two things in terms of the procession, like I've been speaking about, but to dive into the occult secrets of Atlantis, you came out with your Atlantis book years ago, and to expound upon it.
Right, Sethicus. That was the first book. It was a hell getting it together, and I'm always updating it. The things that are happening now are essential. The whole essence of the Atlantis book was ancient ancestral trauma and how that's still there in the psyche, and how then any other phenomena that we know about the human race, its behavior, temperament, psychology, all the possible typologies and profiles that one could have, right up to obvious elements of masculinity and femininity and all of the above, right, come out of that moment of history.
Right, splitting
of
consciousness in terms.
That's it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's why we even biologically have a split in the brain, the two hemispheres.
Right. And so things in terms of atavistic thinking, this is what you touched upon in Female Illuminati chapter 2,
right,
into Atlantis. And this is a major theme, I think, in context to not only what needs to be addressed, but why this is still happening in context to the human races.
Yeah, but one thing is historical amnesia. In phylogenetic terms, what we're talking about happened yesterday to push trauma away. An animal's going to do that. A human's going to do that. Same thing we do if we have a major accident on a particular road. We'll even go 2-3 times round the blocks, then somehow face that road again because of what it reminds us. Everything we call history is exactly that detour. We've put distance between ourselves. We've turned the radio up loud. You'll do anything than go on that road again and awaken that wound. And once you approach the whole of history this way, which nobody in history does, they'll talk about a tsunami. They'll talk about the Spanish conquistadors, but those are minor. The First World War, the Second World War, this is all window dressing thrown up as historically important when in fact there's a strata underneath that is more important because it's infinitely more traumatizing. And the later conflicts I just mentioned, these lesser ones, are caused by it.
Right.
So why would you not want to deal with this phylogenetic? Well, one reason is because it's fucking psychology, and that's X'd, which is another manifestation of the trauma because there's no wound at the center of my psyche. Mr. Freud got it all wrong. Sure, don't we know?
Yeah,
so here's the displacements and compensations and turn up the cartoons, racket and the noise to drown out the voice of the trauma itself and anyone who comes along to say, well, it's not fucking healed. And because it's not healed, we got religion. See, this gets very dark. No, we got way worse demonic stuff crept up to make use of the fact that we're traumatized. And the female Illuminati crept up to poison the mind that was already unsettled on a very, very deep level, golemized, all right? Turned into the golem because of these fears, built upon fears. Then ego structure is basically a house of cards that can be blown down at any time. Nobody's even looking at the psychology of it today. They're just going, it's happening. It becomes a headline. And nobody's looking at the psychology of it. A larger collective agreement to not look at the psyche, right? So how are you going to break through that then? Maybe the odd outsider? Yeah, but the general consensus in the world is we're not going to open those doors. It's too painful. The dust and the debris and the cobwebs. We don't want to go down into the depth to uproot and clean out so that real human progress can take place. We'd rather have religion, we'd rather have politics, Netflix, and the whole 9 yards of it. It's horrible.
Right. What we're actually dealing with here is something that took place millions of years ago in terms of the history of the human race. And in terms of that, the way the universal laws of metaphysics and eternal axioms actually operate, past, present, and future are all happening simultaneously right now, right this moment. And things in terms of the parasitic consciousness, take it back to the Nordic tradition in context to the old ones, resurgence into the 9 worlds and rise of inverted Sather. It was the rise of dark sorcery within the god realms and this parasitic, interdimensional, pan-dimensional consciousness that was the cause point for the first war of the gods, ripping and tearing each other to fucking shreds. And that war is still happening within the unconscious, subconscious mind field of individuals. You don't even realize why we're dealing with what the fuck we are. And things in terms of the serpent of wisdom, what the actual serpent of wisdom coincides, the spittle of the gods, going back to the original seedings of humanity here in Midgard, our actual physical universe, manifested Kvasir. Kvasir ended the first war and was instituted to remind them of what the fuck actually happened. It goes on to state that Kvasir was murdered by the Svartalfar The Svartalf are where everybody throughout the course of history, especially going back to Sumeria, got their concept of fallen angels. And this all goes back to Atlantis. This all goes back to Lemuria. And he was murdered for the wisdom that was within his blood. And the States over came in and slurped it up and put it back into the bowl in terms of the true history. But all of these misappropriations and what all of this means, it all goes back to this in context happening now in our present hour to the past. Like you were saying, why allegories are more powerful than others. Speak about the fallen here in terms and your take.
That was what partly the Atlantis book was. Others had done work on to expose this Middle Eastern. But in terms of the Western European, Irish, pre-Celtic, Nordic, have it. It's everywhere written in stone. Right. This is the most extraordinary thing. And still today you get authors who have got it all arse about face. See, I'm the only historian who ever speaks about the West to East migration of the elements of civilization. I had my mentors from a previous age. No one, they've all got it arse about face. They hinterland anyone else who speaks opposite. They're all into Afrocentrism and politically correct shit. And that's why they got the billion-dollar deals, right? And they're all fucking wrong. This is what we're dealing with here in the so-called alternative movement. It's just crazy, right? The origins of all later civilizations began in the West at Atlantis. Atlantis had colonies all over the world. Digging these places up, they're Atlantean, but they're not Atlantis. Atlantis is obviously in the pre-Celtic traditions, well known. And by the way, it wasn't just one settlement, it was many. There were archipelagios. There was up to 4 different sections of the original Atlantis.
Different regions.
And, right? Yeah, perfectly said. And then you have the Arctic homeland, bring in the Finnish traditions that Kalevala, Professor Tolkien was into. He knew that if you express this in the raw, that is as a history, be hinterlanded and be ridiculed, because there's quite a force that can come against you. Even a person of such eminence academically as he still was clever enough. And a few pre-accusers who had written brilliant stuff in fiction, like William Morris, they had that tradition. The myths that they're reading, they cleverly went, there's the answer. We will write myths about this. I'll get back to the fall in a minute. And so the greatest minds who then wanted to communicate this, it's faction, and secrete within it very, very important stuff. In the Western tradition, you have the gods, and they were fair, blue-eyed. They had extreme magical powers, and they had already circumambulated the planet. And then they go on to talk about the Great War they had. And while everybody's thinking that's just a local war of tribes, well, how the hell can it? All of these magical weapons are spoken of, and magical powers as well. These lunatics of the modern age call that the mythological cycle. And this is the technique that then used across the world to say that's just the mythological cycle. It's nothing to do with history. When obviously everything that happened then, we're living on the heap of it, the manifestation, and mostly of the trauma, but not just the trauma, that we are actually still living the consequences of that war. Now, in the Irish context, the fairy folk changed their form. The fallen,
that's actually where it comes from in context.
Exactly. Now, how many people? That's not enough of a mystery.
Right. These beings have wings. Where the fuck did you get that idea from?
Jesus, right?
It
and
goes
the Nordics
back even further.
Yeah, and the Nordics have a very similar
context to the Svartalf are the dark alpha.
Svart. Yeah, that's right.
Alpha.
Yeah. So that war then was extended, and then of course we had other tribulations. The Bible is highly based on Irish wisdom. And one of the anecdotes I can give to that is the fact that in the Irish tradition, the most demonic race is headed by a king and a prince. And the king, Elathan, and his son Bray are considered the most handsome of all, the most beautiful beings that ever existed. Yeah, where do we find that again?
Getting into the mythos of the Tuatha De Danann.
That's right. And their goddess, right, that group that you spoke of, every fucking attempt to mediocritize that group has been done by fake scholars using the word Danu to say Dan, i.e. the tribe of Dan, the Israelites, and other groups that bear that name. Danaus was Greek. They've tried every scam in the book in order to try, mundanify this race. The only trouble is, until the modern age, that race was considered by all other races to be the high ones, the one you spoke of. How can hundreds of years of oral tradition see them as enlightened beings, but numbskulls of the modern age tell you that no, they were just some tribe that wandered, and there's still people that believe that. I believe the myths.
Exactly.
I believe the myths and legends. I believe those. And by the way, there's been support of all of those legends. They've been digging it up. So we have to revise, and it's the same with the Nordics. It's probably even worse. Finnish mythology, the Bok saga, further misinterpreted. They got the wrath. The coming of St. Patrick to Ireland is that wrath. That's a partially true story about the coming of the later groups. But the Nordics had it too with the great invasions. The only time that Eastern Church got together with the Roman Church was at this time when two massive invasions took place, scrubbed from history, of course, and then butchered men, women, and children. They appropriated every single piece of their lore, and the same thing was done in Ireland. Ireland was then under the Catholic Church for centuries, under the thumb of the Vatican, and the forces behind that. It's really ultimately takes you back to this fourth sect, very sinister female groups, and their acolytes, the Knights Templar, and the Knights of Malta. They don't realize that those are just armed military wings of a much more sinister satanic group, mostly headed by women, actually. So if I wasn't hinterlanded before, you sure as fucking hell is hinterlanded
well, I mean,
now.
It's, again, going back to the idea that this is something that could possibly be going on even right the fuck now. But look at the goddamn fucking world and the state of social dynamics. Obviously, we as men know the difference. All of this goes back to things in context to the Alpha, the original progenitors, the serpents of wisdom. The true alignment all goes back to what you stated in Female Illuminati Chapter 2, the goddess Idun, and where they got their concepts for Eden, the biosphere, and the alignments of the central sun. To Udama, in terms of the Great North, this is what the fuck we were torn away from. This is what the correlations to the Svartalfar caused that whole shit of consciousness. I'll just take it there, and seals off the fucking gates of true intelligence, talking about the splitting of the brain and all this different kind of stuff. And why all of these arts and sciences were developed by the ancient wisdom councils in context to the Alpha, so that we can pull this back into alignment with the original seeding of mankind. These codes have almost been utterly fucking destroyed, but as far as the true records go and certain lineages, I think it is within our blood and bones. Otherwise, we wouldn't be drawn to these things and extracting proper knowledge and wisdom to know the fucking difference. All of that in context to the Alpha, to Svartalfar. Now take it to the Sophics versus the Sophionics in context to Sather.
Yeah, they split down the middle. Sophic works for the women of wisdom. But after studying this group, realized they split down the middle, and the darker sisterhood was Sophianics. The reality is very, very real, regardless of the words you use. And that's a long story, because back at the time of Atlantis, like Genesis 6, the women were taken by the Nephilim. But the thing is that there's no message in any record anywhere of any woman fighting back. Right. Later they did, as I point out in the Atlantis book. Later, the Eve, I credit as being the ones who actually stopped the havoc. They were the ones who, after the sons of the serpent from Lemuria came in to waken the Adams and Eves, it was the Eves who did heed the call. The positive women strain comes from this, listening to the wisdom of the serpent, the Lemurians, the high ones. They had broken with the evil ones, descended from the stars, who had kept our races, our forebears, in a state of profound ignorance. The breakaway group tried to free the Adams and Eves, as I point out, who heeded the call. And that is why, from that time onwards, the mystery school gynocracy began, because the sons of the serpent, realizing that the women had heeded their call, they became one. And so mystery schools had a very strong female contingent, which is why the Tarot, the major arcana, shows that right from the off. The fact that women held the scroll, women held the wisdom, women sat under the tree, which is, of course, a metaphor for the sacred knowledge.
That's the gates of Mente, to the Hall of Records, actually.
Yes. Other races got sacerdotal women, like the myth of Persephone. A lot of them botched it as we moved on. But the original mythology of the Iceans and the Idun was in hell, right? These were goddesses who were sworn to the sacred tradition, and they either purified the initiate, tempted the initiate, sadly. There's their sexual aspect as well, where one has to pass. They're also then bestowers of the golden sword. You go through the temptations that they'd lay for you. If you passed it, then they smiled upon you, and then you gained the ultimate grail, the ultimate treasure. But the breakaway group, the Sophianics, they were the ones who then aligned themselves with the fallen ones. And power is very, very seductive and attractive. Women have a special penchant for it. They've sold mankind out on at least 2 or 3 occasions. One of their later machinations, called the lie of paternity, where men were not told by the women that they indeed had bred the children that they were breeding. And so there was a breach put between father and son.
That's fucked up, man.
In my work about that, the date is unclear. The earliest date is the 8th century, the very rise of what we call patriarchy. So the women today who are ludicrously screaming about the oppressive violations of patriarchy, they created it. Their violations, which had gone on for millennia, created man to, created such an imbalance in ancient days. And many of it is female documents, by the way.
They're creating fucking eunuchs, a bunch of nutless, fucking spineless fucking pieces of shit that are just going to kowtow like the goddamn fucking king in Alice in Wonderland. Yes, dear. And she's a fucking psychopath fucking off with your head.
Yeah. And the chivalric man, look at Mordred and Morgana, to talk about the crone witch.
The alignment of the true divine feminine force is not happening in context. You got to know the difference in terms of the actual history and what's happening atavistically speaking, and why all of this shit is coming the fuck up in terms of the procession, and why it's so controversial, and then all the bullshit that they're fucking spinning. And it's to keep people in this divide and conquer tactic in order to keep that festering, wounded womb going. This is what gave birth to the dark gods in context that's far far. And things in terms of the Nordic tradition, this all goes back to Hyrroken, who is Loki's consort, the trickster. Yeah, look at that, right? You realize what wisdom is being told there? That's right. So the crone is the older woman. This is in the mythology, which you, as I say, you trace back to its. The older women of the tribes of those days are the ones who came up with the idea to teach the younger women to lie to their husbands. And I'm making a lot, very brief here. The old crone, the cider, as you say, and other groups that these are the ones who kept the secret and initiated younger women into lying to their husbands about paternity. Now, this went on for centuries. It's all been scrubbed from the history books, but I've discovered it. It's wild shit, man. I'm just listening.
Oh, yeah. And it's in our mythologies. If it's still there. You see, if you can take the most powerful and godly thing on the planet, which is man, and you can tear him to fucking shreds sexually, anything you can do of the sorcery to banjax his libido. And of course, men did notice that some of the sons that they had bred looked like them or looked like a grandfather. So not all men were fooled, but that is when the lie came in by women to cover this. We're told, it's not you, you fucking, it's the gods. And I produced from the ancestor spirits. So we got this lie. The lie of ancestry, the lie that the child born only looks like you, punk, not because you did anything. It's an elder from the past, one of your forebears or ancestors that I, because I'm such a fucking goddess, have produced, not your son personally, which of course, as I say, was a lie that was perpetrated for centuries. No, they got out of it they had to have it come up with a lie because certain men saw such a resemblance in the sons and daughters that they were producing. The women then came back with one of the biggest supernatural lies, which is that it's the spirits that met me at night. This is in the Bible when Mother Mary says, I was visited by Gabriel the angel. That one incident, how many millions upon millions of Christians love that story and know that story? How many have worked out? It's an old one. This is the story that women told men. I sat on a rock and suddenly, something happened, and they believed that you could sit on the top of a stone and get penetrated. You'll find these remnants all over the way. But the most common one was that a divine spirit in the form of a dove or a beam of light or a wind, the pneuma, came upon me and I was with child. Men were gormless enough to fucking believe this because, of course, look at the carrot that's is secreted in that story. My son is actually one of the gods. Now, you go back to the earliest prophets of Judaism, and you'll hear this, that if it wasn't Melchizedek,
the
prophets...
Dark Melchizedeks, right?
Yeah, I've got it all in my Atlantis DVD, but there was others that believed that they were really of the stars because the women have been lying to them about the paternity. Man then has been living in a lie until it changed. And when it changed, men rose up in mass and all the tribes. That is the birth of the patriarchy that later women have always reminded you is the great evil. But they never remind you of why it got created. No, it's just man's pure rotten evil. Man is rotten on this planet. He just came up to oppress women. They never want to talk about the crime that created it. So I've had to approach this very slowly in my different works, like Monstrous Feminine, because in order to bring this up that we're talking about, you need to do a lot of, antecedent states soft, because people are soft. If you were to lay this on them, they'd freak out.
No flex, man.
Yeah, and the women would want to fucking crucify you as well. But I'm a historian, and I know that this is true, and they can go fuck themselves, and anyone who doubts this, because I've got the evidence, and I've got it from books by feminists, by the way. Mm-hmm. So this lie was over, and that's when men knew that their children were actually biologically, based on insemination. The lie was busted. Women, at that point, realizing that the biggest lie that they'd ever woven around the mind, man had now awakened to that one thing.
Taking things back to the histories, the men were fucking slaughtered, enacted by the Spoknapar in context.
The Immaculate.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
nailed it. That's right.
In terms, the women ended up marrying their sons, which gave birth to the Dark Brotherhoods and Sisterhoods.
That's it.
This is how it fucking happened. And men that knew the fucking difference, the fucking threat, the true alpha, gamma, sigma, were fucking targeted to be eradicated off the fucking earth. This is also part of the agenda bullshit, you know, the whole projection of toxic masculinity. And you got to be some kind of fucking kowtowing, spineless, castrated motherfucker to please the entitled, malignant bullshit as a cause point of what gave birth to evil, not only in terms of the God worlds, but all worlds and universes in context to the true universal tree of life. And so this war goes back to the dark birthing in context to what you're getting at, and just fucking nailing it. And this has to be acknowledged if we're going to cross these fucking thresholds in terms of how to make connection to our core essence and the alignments and all these things that I've touched upon over the years. I have this gift to be able to see correlations in context of puzzle pieces that might not fit here, and there, but more is going to be revealed. The veils are being torn the fuck back. But this all goes back to the core wound of humanity. And this core wound is something that has never been healed since what happened did. And this is what has risen up and what they're trying to keep festering so that they can triangulate and lock the reality field down and all the divide and conquer tactics to keep the war of the gods. It's happening from within us. And until we recognize the difference, it's just going to be a repeat of 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 these fucking cycles like you're talking about.
Yeah, if you've seen my Monstrous Feminine, double parts.
It's wild shit, man. It's extremely controversial.
Here's the thing, the way to look at it. The original live paternity, the origin of the evil that came later, which not only is a male-female divide, pestilence of any female orders or even ordinary women today, they're not aware of it, it's atavistic, was the vengeance that woman wreaked that lie had been busted. They didn't back down and go, okay, we lied, can you forgive us? No, they harbored a vendetta against the male for finding out that they had lied for centuries. The lie against paternity is not the origin of evil. That is an evil act. It's the continuing spite. It's like a child who's been discovered stealing money or whatever. Instead of being contrite, saying we regret our evil ways, with the help of the crones, is that the woman harbored then a secret spite to get back at the men for discovery. And that to me is the origin then of the real divide. And that instinct for vengeance and for further evil, because of first evil had been discovered, became atavistic. It's been rolled out in history, and all women contain it. The good woman.
What's fucking crazy about these evil practitioners in context of inverted Seder? There is no use for men. We don't need men.
But they have their sons.
The fuck are you smoking? Right.
Yeah, they have their sons, right? And that's where we are today. What do you think a millennial is on an archetypal level? What do you think a eunuch is? What do you think a fucking feminized, geeky, lanky? There's no men around in the families anyway. It's all part of it. And the woman has containment of Mordred for 20 fucking years to mold his very being. In the ancient days, they mated and copulated. They kept their sperm in ways that would boggle the fucking mind of people today if they only knew.
That's wild, man.
And that's why these sisterhoods came about. But that concoction is mixed. There's rituals that no ordinary person could ever imagine in the ritual of that. It's not just simply copulating with a toy. It is far more elaborate. It has to do with astrology, astronomy, planetary alignments, other forms of sacrifice, the woman's own readiness. Yes, it's all out of body estates with opium and poppies and fuck. It's a very, 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 very elaborate set of rituals, some of which you get here and there in other cults like the Christian church, the Catholic church. But you'd be amazed what lies all behind that, the evil satanic shit that lies behind Christianism and Judaism. And the bread ritual, yeast, water, salt, grain, are all contextable only in terms of female rituals, and that go back centuries. They found evidence of this. But getting back to the point, the resentment of women being slapped for this ancestral lie is the origin of a deeper commitment to another lie. It's like the criminal saying, all right, I've been busted. They took me down a couple of pegs. We're suspicious now. Oh, and by the way, exactly at this time that city-states with a wall around them needed to keep an eye on the women. Some men would go still to fight or hunt, but certain men were left behind to keep an eye on the women, and especially the old grandmothers. They're down today as the great mothers of the gynocracy, of the matriarchy. That's so much shit, that is, because they were the real evil ones that were contaminating the younger girls. Now, not all of the younger ones went with this. They were loyal to the men, and they're a different group.
I really hope that everyone that is listening to this segment right now is paying very close attention. Things that we are getting into addressed on the level that they need to, rising up to be dealt with to the core wound of humanity. I'm going to pull this segment. Septic Disposer, Black Earth Productions here with Michael Tsarion. We'll be right back after the break.
Oh
gods with spears had smitten Corveg, and in the hall of Odin had burned her. 3 times burned and 3 times born, often again, yet she ever lives. Hyrokid, she is called, she who seeks the home of women, the wide sea, twisted witch, who wields the wand of inverted magic, binds the husk bewitched that were moved by a trance into evil women, the joy she was. Septic Disposer, Black Earth Productions, Blue Flame, Healing Arts and Occult Science here with Michael Tsarion, getting into the occult secrets of Atlantis. Now to continue. You're talking about things in context to the parasitic consciousness running the mechanics and the psyche of these women specifically, given birth to within the 9 worlds and universes of the true universal tree of life. And this is the real goddamn fucking crux. Whether you're a man or a woman, they don't give a fuck. It's to acknowledge what the fuck has actually happened.
Man has misused his power, and women have misused it as well. The only thing is, the history always wants to point to the man and say, you misused your power. Oh, women, you're also sugar and sweet, sugar and spice and all. It's fucking nice.
That's bullshit.
It's amazing how this all connects with the raising of children today and what's going on. There's something happening back here. My message is to women to recognize in a good way, put an end to it. Men have no role in this at all. Men have no role in what's going on today because they didn't create the evils of the world. All women give birth to the children and the tyrants. The very men that women claim are the patriarchy, there's just one little flaw that you seem to always jump over. You bred them. You bred them and you raised them. They're your progeny. Whenever a woman was in power, Eleanor of Aquitaine, it's now been registered formally that 26 to 30% more conflict, more wars, more spite, and on we could go. So their lie is broken down, but we're not getting to the core of the first lie of paternity, which is very, very important. You find it in other works, but it's just passed on. It's just glossed over. As I say, the city-states was to watch the possessions. Realizing he had been lied to systematically, now made a city-state where a woman would be less inclined to get away with it. The feminist comes along and goes, we were treated like chattel.
It is also to say that these things did unfold in terms of protecting the integrity of the garden, protection of the woman, protection of the children.
From her. Woman was the ancient enemy at this point. And so, like, they put a totem of the god. They did a lot of things to make the woman shamed. When this paternity lie was discovered, the man was so irate that the rising up of men over the women is also marked in the fog of history. And it was the overthrowing. But the feminists, wanting to hide the lie, just said Aryan invaders from the north, solar worshippers, came in and killed us all. And all of normal history has bowed to this. It's fucking nonsense.
It's a fucking lie.
Oh, fuck. Do you realize how holy these Scythians that they're talking about were? I mean, the whole thing has been banjaxed, by the way. And there's even a woman, Cynthia Heller, who wrote a book called The Lie of Matriarchy. So it's been undone even by feminists, let alone anybody else. Even though women were subdued for a time and their cults had to go underground. You know, Persephone, remember the whole story of Persephone having to go underground? That's a sign in the mythology that women didn't give up their evil fucking ways. They just went underground, and that's why the matriarchies and gynocracies are secret, very secret.
Then, ladies, you got to listen to what we're getting at here, because it goes deeper than your kindergarten version of what you assume you know about fucking anything in context to any mythos.
Hecate, the witchery that we would know now, is their goddesses.
That's dark Atlantean fucking witchcraft.
Yeah. But they've glossed it up in case somebody should want to knock on the door and peep in. Nothing to worry about. It's just lunar goddess worship. It's just Venus.
People don't even know what the fuck the moon actually is and what it goes back to. They
don't know anything about it.
More ancient cataclysm that happened. It all goes back to shattered consciousness and the moon chains and the fucking inverted energies of Saturn. Interestingly enough, the high priestess, the planetary correspondence to the high priestess is the moon and Saturn. And other stars like Algol, and it was done under the Medusa. Put this decoration out to fool you to think it's all holy. This goddess tradition, this new age shit, they're still doing it. The thing is that it's not holy. It's the opposite. If people are reeling about this, they can't understand it. Just realize that there is a natural sexual power. Power is already invested in a woman in her beauty and sexuality. It's one of the most ancient fucking professions. That's right. When you have the power, the spiritual journey that you're on involves whether or not you're going to use it for good or evil. Some women use it for evil, some use it for good. Power that's already given to you by a higher power of beauty and sexuality to see how you're going to use it. That's right. Women are forced, gun to the head, to dress in their bikinis. They tell you they're being objectified by men. So when you're draped over all of this porn and in all the bloody magazines and undrape yourself in these commercials because you're being oppressed.
right?
Yeah.
Fourth
And
wave feminism.
That's designed, right? And that's designed to not only manifest this pseudo power, but to castrate the fucking men when men are giving their power away.
To do that to most men, you've got to exalt another kind of man. So when you see the heroin chic, and when every time you're looking at one of these models,
They're fucking effeminate.
they're effeminate, but they're see, mythologically, we're decoding it on the ancestral level. They're the child of the goddess. They sit on her lap. They're eunuchs. They cow down to her. They look up to her. Look at these Lady Gaga videos and these horrendous Beyonce videos where the man is always looking up to this fucking thing, right? Yeah. So that man is acceptable because he's the castrati. And the priesthood of the world, the Catholic priesthood of the world, and also these fucking Lutherans and what have you, are exactly that. They're the castrati, the eunuchs that serve the goddess. People have got to start seeing this. And you're right. Women are the ones who really need to take the power and really turn around, because the resentment that they have of being caught for the first lie perpetuated a state of vendetta, a state of resentment that has burned and increased. So we're not making progress. We're in a state of devolution because the resentment is like this. If you have a kid that's been expelled, a point comes when by the time he's had the 20th expulsion, even mommy and daddy must realize it's probably not the school. Any criminal that's been locked up, there's a criminal that comes out, and instead of being reformed, he's resentful. And well, now you've got to take that scenario and multiply it by centuries. Not that women have sat there consciously and individually going, I hate, I hate, I hate. It's atavistic. Yeah. That's why only certain teachers can teach this.
It's unconscious, right?
No Jordan Peterson is going to be able to give you this.
It's an unconscious phenomenon.
That's it. Inner war creates a blindness that exonerates women. But the war is not just about a historical discovery, some Indiana Jones digging up some fucking casket, opening it up and going, it's all written down there like, a couple of fucking tablets. No, this is a war that you come upon when you understand the internal dynamics of your own psyche. Fucking hold your breath while the average man, so-called, why he is what he is, why he's doing what he's doing, why he marries what he marries, and why he lusts pornography. Where's that all coming from? Why does he lust after this woman when he marries that one? Right? The fuck? It's unbelievable mess that's been left, and women are doing absolutely nothing to stop it. In fact, talking about pornography, the idea that women are the biggest voice against it is also based on what we're talking about. They know what's there that you don't. They know why the instinct of man goes towards it. This is one of the atavistic things. They don't address why the whole phenomenon of pornography came up in the first place, why the libido is suppressed.
So many different ways to look at it. This is why I love these types of conversations, because it's not based upon a limited perception in terms of a 360 fucking degree view of what the fuck is actually going on. None of these things that we're talking about, as far as I'm concerned, can be triangulated into this is how it fucking is. These are issues in terms of mathematical reversals, poisoning the fucking codes in context to consciousness, and are the cause point for not only the divide and conquer in our world, but the split in terms of consciousness within the individual. They can't even get it together within themselves, and then it all plays the fuck out in terms of wars and just all this fucking domestic fucking bullshit.
100%. Women are going to be the ultimate victims again. Remember I said that the paternal lie, which was a really fucking hot lie. I mean, that you got a hot lie. It's the angels and it's immaculate conception. Man fell for that.
They're programmed to play the fucking goddamn victim, though. That's the thing.
Dude, a beautiful lie. It worked for centuries, but they got caught. All the lies that they're being perpetrated are just bringing their doom again. You're talking about the eternal cycle of what they're doing again and again. Yeah, but
opening up to it. And we men that know the difference are like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Right. And even in general
projections,
even
men that know the fucking difference, like myself, calling this shit the fuck out and then having to deal with hyperdimensional warfare on fucking levels that people still don't fucking get in context to the veils.
Yeah, I'm not going to be the one they're going to take to any fucking podium. And somehow, in some way, in the unique matter, because there's a justice field is going to operate, and this is going to be clinched again, in which women are again, they think they're oppressed now. They are bringing upon themselves the greatest fucking oppression ever in the history of the universe, all upon themselves right now, because of their continual allegiance to the lie. Is mostly men are the efficient ones. Do you know that as we speak right now, no executive anywhere ever has a one-to-one conference with his secretary or partner, if she's woman, without a male present? Do you know that on flights, they never sit beside their cohort on a flight? They have to book another chair. Do you know that when they get to their hotels or place of residence, when they're traveling, the woman has to actually book a room on a completely different floor? They can't go for coffee dates. They can't sit at a bar together. All because of the evil of the women to try and then say that that man molested me. He said something inappropriate. So all of this thuggery and all of this political correct bullying, the idea that the mob comes in on the favor of the woman and the multicultural to get that man down, torn from his job, that's already a blowback. And they don't want you to know about this. So you have to know where to go to find this.
They're in fucking denial of the fucking goddamn reality of what they don't even know they're fucking up against.
But bringing about their own downfall again. It's written in the ancient scroll.
Right.
Their lie was discovered.
The reason it's fucking happening is you're not listening to fucking men that know the difference here in context.
Oh, are you kidding? They're hurtling down. It's like a snowball effect. They can't stop Sethicus. This evil is eating them up. If you were to take off the cover, they're so rotten with the lie that they have nothing to do but oblivion. We are feeling the drag factor. All of this political correctness, all this feminism, dragging the world down. The majority is always going to survive. It's the minority should not be poking the beard, should not be poking the lion. They're going to go down. So this is a self-destructive core that you can actually observe in most women today. Effeminate men, these just a vanguard protectors around the woman to give them a temporary moment.
That's the pseudo protection.
Yeah, for temporary buffer.
A real fucking man that knows the difference in terms of what we're getting at. No, here's the fucking factor. The divine masculine force is fucking here, and it's not what the fuck you think it is. It's not some castrated fucking bullshit. It's a terrifying force.
The most terrifying force. It's being awakened right
to
fucking
protect the
now.
integrity of the birthrights of mankind, because what we give birth to in terms of this world is going to determine the fucking future. That's the gates of womankind. And if men don't fucking know the difference here and are pulled into the fucking programming, assume they know, but they don't know.
They're not working on the level of knowledge. They're working on a level of pure instinct. Right. They love that feeling because they're at home.
Emotional manipulation, and that's not how to run your mechanics as a man.
If you've maintained a lie, like a worm tongue, any kind of creature that has to live for centuries bearing a lie, aren't they always looking over their shoulder? The liar is always in a state of non-serenity. The non-liar is at peace. The women in history, we're talking as a gynocracy, as an atavistic phenomena, bear a great deal of fear. They've forgotten about it. They don't even know it's there. It's part of their makeup. Most of everything we're saying, most women have no clue about it and would take offense to what we're saying. But we have to get it out. But let them be offended. Fuck, who cares? The point is that now they have this temporary truce surrounded by a bunch of fucking gibbering hipster eunuchs. In that, they've been able to ascend to the top of the media. There'll be executives here, there, and everywhere. That's just temporary so that the whole of the universe can see what they do when they get to those stages. They've been so abusive, as I just said, that males who still dominate in the executive ceiling, and this is in the age of when cameras and recordings. Why is that? Is that man's oppression or is it women's manipulation? He said something inappropriate. Get him out of his job and put me in a seat. The women themselves have made it so egregious. There's no criminal history of man ever to be brought against it. And even though there's a temporary cessation and quiet against it, you better believe that this masculine force in the end is going to strike, and these women are going to bring upon them a holocaust of such egregious that it will again, change the zeitgeist. And it's all up to them right now to get back into it if they can. This thing has to go to its complete antithesis. It has to go to apocalypse level, and then there'll be a restoration again, because this crime is not 5 minutes old. It's a continuation and a domino effect of a crime that had been taking place as early as the 8th century BC and evidence of it earlier than that.
Interestingly enough, I sent you a link to this movie called Revolver, which exposes the female Illuminati for what the fuck it is. It blatantly illustrates the crux in so many different ways. What is it going to take for women to wake the fuck up to the reality of it?
They're so seeped. Even a good woman who has none of these traits that we're talking about is saturated in the magazine and the television programs and the billboards and other women around them who are conduits for this. An individual woman has almost zero chance of doing the right holy work.
And this is why women need men that know the difference.
Obviously. But they're going with any coaching thing that expresses power over men. They're not interested in it for itself. And when this Dallas and Dynasty and all that crap came out in the 80s, women went for it like nobody's business. And even in those programs, they actually admit it's entirely for sexual power. It's not for monetary power to change the world. It's not to do good. It's not for humanity. It's personally deeply narcissistic. Even some of the shows that sparked this level of aggressive, aggravated feminism. And then you got better writers, Phyllis Chesler, Esther Villar, Camille Paglia. There's no end of women who are trying to turn the table. They go into third and fourth wave feminism, show you the terrible, terrible contradictions Only 9% of women in the UK identify themselves with feminism. So it's not all bleak. But even though they say that verbally, they're indoctrinated with the traits of feminism. Even though they may not identify, they don't realize that their brains have been colonized by this sinister feminism. But what my job is to show you where this feminism comes from. It's history. It's not Michael Tsarion making this up. The Monstrous Feminine and other works I've done on this, Female Illuminati, Female Psychology, is to show you how to uproot this atavistic, instinctual hatred of men.
Everything in terms of what you're saying goes back to the Shadow Dragon. It goes back to Nidhogger. In context, who gnaws at the roots of the true universal tree of life, gnawing at the nervous system, gnawing at the thought and emotion, gnawing to devour consciousness, because you can't come to no cosmic law. And the state of mind of these types are not willing to see how they are being ran, how they are programmed, facing the fucking mirror. This is what true initiation requires.
There's women today on record, and there are many thousands who still lie about paternity. Even on celebrity levels. So all the things we're talking about that are happening in the ancient times are happening in overwhelming numbers now.
Right now.
And that's just one anecdote. But when it comes down to the solutions, it's very simple. What does it take for a beautiful woman to not violate and not misuse her sexuality and beauty? It's not being done by the vast majority of women for the reasons we're talking about. They have an etiology, and it's not going to be 5 minutes ago. It goes back to the matrophobia, the daughter-mother relationship, but that's not where it begins and ends. We just start talking about ancestral trauma. Matrophobia is but one manifestation of something so subterranean. People live and die without knowing anything what we're talking about. No. And then when you go to that level and say, okay, let's carry it on because it ends with a child's birth, a girl is life. No, it doesn't end there. That phenomena of trauma between mother and daughter and the deep envies and the deep misprogramming is itself a manifestation. So women, victim number one, the victim number two, all the way down the line, they voice it when they're talking about being victims. They're victims of a lie. They're victims of a satanic programming that goes back before Egypt existed. Yeah. This is going back to Atlantis. This is something that was seeded in the women who went with the fallen. This is this, right. It was born out of a primitive resentment of male power.
Obviously, that's a threat to the goddamn fucking Watchers in context. Men in their true fucking power, in alignment.
Well, the fallen angels gave anyone, the women especially, the technological power that overwrites male brawn.
Right, there's that physical factor, but I'm talking about the true power of the divine masculine force in context, the terrifying fucking force, and that's what these motherfuckers fear.
It wouldn't have mattered if it was simple brawn, but it wasn't, as you say. It was all, right? And that's nature. This is very important for women to get. Otherwise, they're just going to be riddled with resentment about people like us talking this way. This is simple fact. Nature decided that women will be weaker than men. So if you go against man, you go against nature. And that's what they've been doing. Isn't woman meant to be this goddess who's meant to be one with nature? These fucking Stevie Nicks types running around in the New Age movement. They're the most anti-natural people because any of them that bear resentment to male masculinity is already a very unnatural being. And they will suffer accordingly, which they are. So you go back to the ancient times, who told a woman to resent men for their physical strength, but not just that, endurance? Just sit down and make a list. Who told women to think that nature, which endowed man with that physical strength and endurance and the ability to cross fucking mountains and defend them from the fucking nightmare attacks, who told a woman to resent it rather than admire it? So you scroll forward to today, and that's the answer. Women, girls need to be brought up to admire their fathers and admire men in general. That's the solution. That's the elixir. Women are bringing up their daughters to fucking hate men, to envy them, and to compete with them in the most egregious ways. Go ahead. Let's see what you can do. What the fuck? The solution is start admiring men to uproot this fucking foul programming. And secondly, stop abusing sexuality and beauty. Is that really something we need a fucking G8 summit conference for? Or is it something that is common fucking sense? Because when you start doing it, the whole world will transform. Doesn't require any heavy lifting at all.
It's a shift in terms of perception and consciousness. So the difference in terms of everything that we're getting into. This is so important. People are not having this conversation.
Nobody is.
They have not gone deep enough.
Never will.
And I've often said it. You don't know who the fuck is on the planet, fuckers. You don't know. And there's more that's going to be real. There's more that's going to be unveiled. And taking it back to the actual animist traditions, this is what we need to get back to and unpack this, because it's far fucking worse than people could fucking imagine.
Oh, totally.
But on other ends of the equation, the actual alignment is more powerful and terrifying to them than you can imagine. And that's why you're afraid. You're afraid of who the fuck you really are in terms of your actual alignment, because it forces people to face that atavistic shit by no other means come up to be dealt with and released and moved through and healed, psychologically speaking, right?
Yes, I believe that atavistic terror was the terror of the liar, who always had to look over their shoulder while they perpetrated the lie. It's also one of the things that can stop one of the older women, these ancient women doing it. Once they bought into what the crones have been telling them, some of them changed. And it was those women who told the truth. You remember 9 months ago when, we were together and we laid together? You birthed this son. In the breach of the father to son bond, we can't actually have civilization. Any historian who talks about civilization came from Egypt, civilization was the Persians. What the fuck are you talking about? The breakage of the father-son bond undermines civilization. As Freud and Totem and Taboo, he was trying to address this his own way. When the son does not recognize his father, he has no allegiance to him and quickly becomes a rival. Mordred in the King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table becomes an acolyte of the evil witch. And he's raised by the women of the tribe, so he has no allegiance to the man who gave him birth. This is the legacy of what women had done in the ancient past that everyone scrubbed from history. And this wouldn't matter if it was just in one tribe and over a couple of years. No, this was universal. All the tribes suffered from this, where the father did not know his son, or only maybe slightly guessed, and then that was ameliorated because the woman said, oh, he's not your son, he's the son of your ancestors. They came to me spiritually. Aren't I such a holy person? They impregnated me, so I am the gateway of the gods. So woman not only vastly exalted, her image in the mind of man became the goddess that she's not. Woman was artificially exalted. We start looking up to women because of this allegiance. Like Mother Mary is looked up to this very day because they believe she's the house and mother of God. This legacy is totally and utterly false. Because of the lie of paternity, the breakage between father and son undermined all civilizations which last only 5 minutes. All the civilizations, no matter how long you think that they lasted, were already corrupt and had no foundation of cement. Father would rival son and son would rival father. And father would have other acolytes. In other words, this bond, the most essential bond for our planet to have legitimate, holistic, workable civilizations has never been. Histories are being written as if they are. No, that's baby stuff. That's ladybug fucking civilization. The real substance of civilization has never been because of the breakage of that. And woman stands accused. So in the Demetrian and Aphroditic periods, before it was busted, later, when it was over and man knew that his son was his son, the contamination had already been done. So much evil had been done already that even when it was known that the son follows the father, it never really cemented again. Because originally it had been so broken down that even when men knew that their sons were indeed their sons, civilizations as we know them were already so weakened, like plasticine. They were held together by tape and fucking safety pins. So that didn't save us. The resentment of the women is still brooding and breeding, which is still an offense, like the Hittite Empire. And there's other ones as well. Even though there was positives in the fact that a man now knew that his blood was right in front of him and that care started to exist now in that bond, nevertheless, the ultimate pestilence had not been removed and was going to come out in a different way, which is, as I said, the misuse even more of sexuality and beauty. And this is what you get in the myth of Tristram and Isolde. You get it in many forms in the Arthurian legends and many other legends besides. I mean, it's just the French have it. They've all got this, where the woman is still up to her antics. She's still making criminal acts against the male.
We're going to pull this segment onto another break so as to heed the proper knowledge and wisdom expressed in this segment. It is time for men and women to firmly pull their heads out of their asses, recognize the difference, and pull the trajectory back on to the original timeline. This is all coming from a place of great care and wisdom, reveal the true codes of men like myself and Michael Tsarion that are coming from the core of true intelligence, for not only the sake of the birthright of mankind, but for future generations in terms of the children and their future. Because if we don't catch this now in a mighty way, in terms of unity consciousness, knowing the difference, it's only going to get worse. This is Seth Esposa, Black Earth Productions, here with Michael Tsarion. We'll be right back after the break.
Beral Frodo
Ah, like gold fall the leaves in the wind, long years numberless as the winds of trees. The years have passed like swift draughts of the sweet mead in lofty halls beyond the west, beneath the blue vaults of Varda, where the songs tremble in the song of her voice, holy and queenly, who now shall refill the cup. For now the kindler Varda, the queen of the stars, from Mount Everwhite has uplifted her hands like clouds, and all paths are drowned deep in shadow, and out of a gray country darkness lies on the foaming waves between us, and mist covers the jewels of Kalasira forever. Now lost to those from the east is Valamar. Maybe thou shalt find Valamar, maybe even thou shalt find it. This is Septic Exposer, Black Earth Productions, Blue Flame, Healing Arts, and Occult Science, here with Michael Tsarion, diving deep into the occult secrets of Atlantis. Now to continue.
So in Female Illuminati Chapter 2, to expound on this, you speak about the sons and daughters of the Serpent that rebelled against. It's going to that now, if you would.
Of course it will. Again, women are the key here. Women are the ones who need to know how their daughters are being subliminally programmed by magazines. Stop it. They're the ones who need to look at these images on TV and stop it. It's for the women to get this thesis and do something about it. Believe you me, they're free to do it. They can be as offended as you like by what I'm fucking saying. They have to go and do it. It's up to them to remedy, take up the mantle, go through the initiation, realize the filthy pestilence that's coming along through their daughters' minds, through this Abramovich and all the other pestilence and these Lady Gagas.
They're turning everyone into dark moons.
I've got to tell you about the blood and the death and the mayhem and the see. But what all I only can do and have done is point out that that blood and that filth in those videos, symbolism is in it, is part of an old tradition of this gynocracy. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not getting out there to hardwire you. I'm just going to point it out to you that's filthy. If you can't see it's filthy, then you're filthy. I'm going to be the one to tell you that you are. I'm not there to make it easy for you. But you're quite right. There's another group of women, and they're maybe the ones that need to stand up now and do something about it. We have a beautiful evidence of this in other areas of my work. Lots of women are really into it. There is hope there, but that is the next step. When you look back at history, do not believe that we've ever had civilization. It's still to come. How can you have a king-son bond, male-son bond, when everything that's in that child's head has been programmed by his mother? He's been feminized to the nth degree. He's been collectivized to the nth degree. Do as others do. Don't stand out. Nah, come on. And all the rest of it. And also has been programmed to see his own masculinity and the masculinity of father or others. Right. Most men you see.
And that's not where the fuck you're going to get it. You ain't going to get it there.
Fuck, it's an antithesis. Your own voice as a male, You no longer have a father to bond with anyway. And usually the father that's around is a specimen so goddamn foul, I wouldn't want to fucking bond with it. Even if there is one around, usually a boy and a girl's vision of the male parent is contaminated by the verbiage and the programming of the mother, who is part of the gynocracy, part of the feminism, bought all that third wave and fourth wave feminism. They're full of hate. I mean, it's obvious. Girls today are committing suicide at a phenomenal rate. They can't even handle suffering. They can't have pain in their fucking lives. And the boys are just seconds behind. So the very phenomenological evidence of our times. And as I said, these bullying groups that come on as soon as an offensive thing is said,
right?
That's the collective. They think they can stop us. As I said, get one thing clear. Solution 3, we mentioned 2. Solution 3 is they're bringing about their own fucking demise. Every step they make, every policing that they do, all the bullying that they do, and everything that they believe is actually leading to their own total annihilation. Keep going, people, because one day you're going to fucking beard the lion and you ain't going to like what happens next. One day you're going to live to fucking regret it. What I look at it on a spiritual level, pus has to come out. The lie cannot live forever. Degeneracy.
It's necessary.
Right.
And this has to be discussed in context so we can burn this shit the fuck out, the cosmic ethanol.
That's right. The last thing we need now is for the veil of secrecy. So these snowflakes, these feminists, these multiculturalists, aggravated women who coming out, like George Orwell said, they are the worst advertisement for themselves. Keep the cameras fucking rolling. Let younger men discover what in the hell has raised them and what's out there. Get fatter and fatter. Let them get fucking more mean. Let them get more aggressive. I told you before, right upstairs now at the highest echelons, women are not realizing the hell that they're bringing upon themselves. They're bringing about another oppression by screaming about oppression. The racism that they have perpetrated when any white man speaks is going to backlash on their faces. The very anti-masculinity that they keep demonizing. How can the feminists align with Islam? Well, they do. So you see what I'm saying? It's like they're bringing about such contradictions that they will backfire, but they're so fucking stupid in terms of history, sociology, and philosophy and psychology. These are nitwits. That if you identify with them and you are listening to us right now and you are fucking negating anything we're saying, you're part of the fucking problem and you can be as offended as you fucking like. Time will show that we are right. The sheep will be separated from the goats and we're going to fucking die and perish. Right? If you don't get it.
Take it back to the goats of wisdom. Neter kanum. Neter kanum.
You can't win.
Self-actualized intelligence in terms of the ignitions of alignment, of proper knowledge and wisdom, knowing the difference. And Michael is right about what he's saying. If you continue on, you're just going to bring it upon yourself. At the end of the fucking day, you're going to fucking blame. This is what it means to face the magic mirror gates. This is also the beauty and the true strength of facing the magic mirror gates. So that triangulated fucking rift in terms of the gates of Amente where proper knowledge and wisdom is revealed. The true records, man, they can be accessed. And I have accessed them in terms of my personal pathwork. This isn't stuff I necessarily get into with people. Everything beyond this whole dynamic, this is the crux of why the world is in the goddamn fucking condition that it fucking is. Straight the fuck up. Context of the procession and the Atlantean cycle that humanity has been caught in for at least the last 26,000 years.
Truth is underlying all of this. They are the liars, they are the deceivers, there's the manipulators, this dark force, but truth has moved them along to the final denouement. We're at the black gates, brought to this point. So as I say, number one, they can't win. The force they're trying to fight is so absolutely sacrosanct that it cannot lose. That's what these enemy fuckers need to understand.
And the Georgia Guidestones were just fucking destroyed.
Right, look at that.
And people can have their goddamn fucking opinions about what the fuck happened, but you do not know who is on the fucking earth.
Their own lie brings about the truth. When there's a lie, it waves a flag to nature to say, come and get me. And that's what's been happening. These people are heading to the wall, not us. We are going to fucking take you out because you can't win against the force that you've set yourself up to fight. It's absolutely infantile. You're punching in the fucking air. So they can't win.
Like I've said, it's more terrifying. The original sigil of Albion was the wolf. And the wolf has been demonized. The wolf has been demonized by the vampire.
The Scythian, the protector of the race, the protector of truth was the wolf. Veristraga was the most sacred animal as protector of the truth, the boar.
In terms of Seder and Galder, it was the wolf, the boar, and also the bear, and other totemistic expressions in terms of animals being the extensions of human consciousness. This is why they come to you, say, in dream time or in actual spirits.
Look at Odin's crows, the horse. Yeah.
That's
See, so
Sleipnir, and you got Gary and Freaky.
you think you guys are going to win? They'll be eating your fucking corpse. Those two crows will be eating your corpse and plucking your eyes out.
Right, and all of that in context of what you're saying isn't anything that you would not have brought upon yourself in terms of violation of cosmic law. It's a violation in terms of our connection to nature and the universe and what the birthright of mankind actually institutes. And this is what you all have been stripped from. The gates still exist, and you are correct, Michael. We are at that black gate in context of what Tolkien put in Lord of the Rings. Where do you think he got his ideas from? Something far more ancient than you realize. But again, it's present. It's present with the Norns in terms of their weaving. Like I've stated, they have wept for what has been woven. They stand there at the well of Ur, the wellspring of the ignition of life itself when creation poured forth, when the fires of Muspelheim hit the ice realm of Niflheim. That's the waters of creation. And they want to shut off the flow and make the pond fucking stagnate so that it can give birth to this malignant fucking bullshit.
Well, exactly.
And it steals the gold of consciousness. This is what the first war of the gods was over the nectar of immortality. And I will say it as boldly as I have. We have it in liquid form. Take it or fucking leave it.
Well, the story has been told to mankind, not by Michael Tsarion. You know, the young girl being contaminated by an older, sickly, devious, self-hating, narcissistic, cruel, evil woman. There has been a story of matrophobia in all of the cartoons and in all of the movies. We didn't make this up. Bringing it now to the table, and I'm not fucking giving a shit.
It is their choice, and you have to come willingly with no fear in terms of whatever may come up. And I've been through the rites. I know Michael's been through the rites. Other people out there have been through the rites. Otherwise, we wouldn't know what we know in context. It's not just study and research. It's confirmation to something that is working to get our attention. And it's always there. It's that burning thorn in your fucking chest. You cannot deny it. You can't ignore it.
My work has been hinterlanded, obviously. We've said that before. So I encourage people to go over, watch at least, sign up even just 1 month and watch Monstrous Feminine.
Just check it out.
We've got the whole 6 hours it was after editing the whole female Illuminati program you've alluded to. Thanks for that, Sethicus.
Yeah,
it's right there.
And so going through the gates and seeing who's going to be dedicated, who's actually going to see this through, because those that have been doing the real work that I've spoken with, that I've gotten into these concepts with, that have been initiated into the first phases of what's required with the mystery school on my end, there's more coming. There is no arrival point in terms of what's going to be revealed, all the things that we're speaking about right now. There is so much more beyond this. We are recreating the tables of philosophy that they destroyed. The Stoic philosophers that could see what the fuck was really going on and had the fucking sand and the fucking heart to call shit out for what the fuck it is. That's what a true man is going to fucking do, is going to call it the fuck out. And so it's to recognize the difference. And this by no means is a slam on women in context. It's what the fuck you're dealing with that you can't even fucking see, because you don't have the perception that we do. You have the perception of a woman. Man has the perception of the man. We're completely different fucking creatures, okay? That, going back to the crux, is the mystery of all mysteries. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I would. And I say that women have to realize they're bringing about their own destruction here. What man says or doesn't say should not be their focus. If they still have an ear for the truth, then they get it and we're good. I'm here to protect them. I'm here to awaken something even deeper than the lie.
Right.
But they respond to it as masculine women, or they respond to it as feminized women, and the journey begins. But that journey will take them back to their relationship with their mothers, as well as the father, but mostly with the mother, to the core of matrophobia. Anyone who's interested in that can visit my Dragon Mother site. You can get to it through the Michael Tsarion site. I feature all my websites on the main michaeltsarion.com site. This information has now come to bear at exactly the time that it needs to come to bear, because the darker force of these Gnostics, the Gnostic cult, which is another tentacle of the female Illuminati, they're moving even more assiduously to get your daughters in their clutches. But they can't get them without you feeding them, putting your daughters on a plate and handing them to this fucking gorgonic force, this Medusan, Stygian, gorgonic force, all right?
Yeah.
So don't be blaming fucking men and reading what feminists has got to say. Every day you're sacrificing your own daughters to the beast. Is that not enough for you to get fucking with it?
And there's a beast that's even more terrifying than this in terms of the true masculine force that's going to call it. The parasitic consciousness in terms of these interdimensional, pan-dimensional entities. Look, this shit came out, proof of it came out in terms of people dying from the needle crab, and they got this squid shit coming out of their fucking hearts. That's exactly what the fuck the old ones are in context, everybody.
Well, who bred those people? See, all men have an alibi, and that is that we were bred by women. Their consciousness, their mentality matters. But a sage, the initiated sage who works on an esoteric level, understands that anything that you find on the ontogenetic personal level also manifests socially. That means that the role of women as mothers, as women, as lovers, as girlfriends in society parallels the individual experience is then on the social. It's not rocket science. It's the secret history or the criminal history of womankind. And I'm going to do that work no matter who thinks different. Man is gone. His masculinity has been drained and vampirized off. And that's what we want to look at, is who is the culprit. I'm not serving men and women. I'm serving masculine and feminine typologies that are what really matters under the veil of masculinity and femininity. Why do you think you've all got this gender fluidity and gender dysphoria being perpetrated by this Gnostic cult in the form of the feminists? Because they know what's coming. They know that the restoration of the masculine is their greatest threat, and all that it entails. And so they want to then completely scramble it, as they've been really lucky doing. And the complicity of the woman is again involved. The woman is the one going, yes, take my kid on the altar of sacrifice and give them hormones and drugs so that by the time they're pubescent, they're not. Pubescent is being withheld so that the child remains in an infantile state. It's been well known by psychologists. Female psychologists already know that most women in the world are operating on the emotional level of an 8-year-old. They may have high IQs, enough to get through Harvard and take a job, but they're emotionally on the level of 8-year-olds. That's not me saying that. And then all you need to do is go and confirm that for yourself if you ever doubted it, by going to the nearest fucking mall and just walking around with some open fucking eyes and going into all the stores that sell things for women, including fake nipples, which are nothing to do with, them seducing men, of course. That's just for their own. And all the fucking rest of it. Just observe what women do of a day, sit at a cafe table and listen to what they're talking about. If you needed to have any further proof of the fucking mundanity, just observe it. And then you go into deeper levels of how they raise children and what they sign on for politically and who they vote in and all the rest of it. And if you haven't had 5 years of the most colossal proofs of what it's all about, from Hillary Clinton down, there is no saving you. Physical events, look at these snowflakes running in the streets. This bitch down there in fucking New Zealand. By the way, even what's happening in the EU, although they keep putting Klaus Schwab's face up there, no, there's very powerful women from the old bloodline involved in the EU and the UN and all of that.
Who the fuck do you think is giving birth to it in context to the manipulation of the creatrix? We are the fucking creators. We are the ones that see vision.
You're quite right, because none of what we're saying exonerates any crime by any man. It explains it. Men are born of women. Man's minds are conditioned by the feminine. It's not just individual families. It's a social phenomenon of the ultra.
I thank the gods for the lessons of my father. I thank the gods for what he taught me. I got a lot of projects I'm working on. I'm teaching, man. Really kicking ass over here, and things are very, very good. Michael, I want to thank you for coming on. I appreciate you, the time, and your dedication to the truth. What so many people out there still don't know. Yeah,
it's not every day that we get conversations like this, so big thanks.
Yeah. Everybody out there, go check out enslaved.com, become a member, and you get access to premium content. Check out more of Michael Tsarion's work.
You can go to femaleilluminati.com. They can go to dragonmother.net to read up on all of this stuff. And you get access to all those sites through michaeltsarion.com. If you just go there and you'll see the links. And there's also a whole bunch of articles which people might find interesting. We're really doing some top drawer stuff right now, and it's very, very needed, and really welcome you over there to check it out.
Shit's getting wild. Shit's getting fucking real, you guys. And it's going to be interesting to see what continues to unfold. So
good rest of the day. Take care, mate.
So as to move things now into wrapping things up with this segment. This is very intense. Everything that me and Michael Tsarion got into. And it's going to require higher levels of spiritual maturity, to be in a place of observation and allowing truth to be the master teacher, which is the master teacher of the mystery school on my end. And for those that have taken the initiation into the blue flame healing arts and occult science, both men and women, and in context to the women that are doing the real work, they are moving through these things otherwise and finding the alignment. And if anybody out there listening is interested in diving deeper into the unveiling sequence, ignition of star core intelligence, to take initiation into the mystery school, send me an email at blackearthproductions@hotmail.com. Check out the website at blackearthproductions.com. Check out every single page that is on there in terms of the links, the services page, where all that is offered is explained, as well as other readings and counsel for those to whom it's meant. And with initiation into the mystery school and or otherwise, you get full access to the Black Earth Library, which again holds over 40,000 books of occult reference material you're not going to find anywhere else on the face of the earth. This is your opportunity in terms of the procession. And with the advancements and everything that's unfolding, you're definitely going to want to be a part of this in context to what happens. To not only set on course your life in the alignment of your destiny, but to be a part of making history in terms of the ancient future. For as we said, this cannot be stopped. It's time to decide. Again, we launched our products page a few months ago. We have our weapons forge, we have the apothecary. You're going to want to get a hold of the merch. It is made available on the products page. Things are systematically still taking a bit of time to manifest. Everything, though, is underway with that, and pre-orders are made available in context. And of course, the nectar of Athanasia, to which we are the only ones on the face of the earth and the first ones on the face of the earth to release this back into the reality field since what happened did, which is meant to meet the holistic, organic process of the star core ignition of the gold of consciousness, meeting the priming of the prima materia with the nectar of Athanasia. Everything happening in terms of this platform and everybody else I am in network with. The progression rate as to what is unfolding, like has been stated, cannot be stopped, and is to hail again the original timeline trajectory and the birthright of mankind. It is your birthright to claim and to own what truth itself reveals at the gates into what is beyond all of the things that were discussed. And entrain yourself in terms of the proper knowledge and wisdom that is revealed in context to your individuated initiation into the mystery school. Things to templating, things to blood codes, soul codes, the trajectory of knowing how hyperdimensional warfare operates, and in terms of temple rites of initiation, bringing it all back to the true universal tree of life in the future in terms of what is manifesting. So as to wrap things up, an Altharian maid there was of old, a shining star by day, her mantle white as hemmed with gold, her shoes of silver gray. A star was bound upon her brows, a light was on her hair, a sun upon the golden brows, and Lorien fair. Her hair was long, her limbs were white, and fair she was and free, and in the wind she went as light as leaf of linden tree. Beside the falls of Nemrondal, by water clear and cool, her voice as falling silver fell into the shining pool. Where she now wanders, none can tell, in sunlight or in shade, for lost of yore was Nemrondal, and in the mountains strayed. The Altharian ship, in haven gray beneath the mountain lee, awaited her for many day beside the roaring sea. A wind by night in northern lands arose and louder cried, and drove the ship from Altharian strands across the swart Altharian tide. When dawn came dim, the land was lost, the mountains sinking gray, beyond the heaving waves that tossed their plumes of blinding spray. Amroth beheld the fading shore, now low beyond the swell, and cursed the faithless ship that bore him far from Nemrondal. Of old he was an Altharian king, a ward of tree and glee, when golden were the bross in spring, and fair Lothlorien. From helm to sea they saw him leap, his arrow from the string, and dive into the water deep, as mew upon the wing. The wind was in his flowing hair, the foam about him shone. Afar they saw him strong and fair, go riding like a swan. But from the west has come no word, and on the hither shore no tidings Altharian folk have heard of Amaroth evermore. This is Seth the Casposa, Black Earth Productions, Blue Flame Healing Arts, Occult Science, Temple of the White Dragon. Be empowered, be encouraged.